Monix, wait. I gotta tell these guys something. I had a dream. I had a dream I was in heaven. And my mother spoke to me. She was wearing this flowing white gown, and she showed me a brand new way to score a basket. She called it the alley-oop. She spoke to me and she said, "With this gift, you will win 4th place."
We are back in action here at the Mega Bowl. Coffee Black is slaying for the tropics.
What do we do on here?
We should do a year-end, like the takeys, like the awards, year-end awards, like hottest takes throughout the year of podcasting for us.
Best
May or
guess.
may not. Like,
Worst
like
guess.
for instance, Rory's gonna win the Masters. Hot take came true, right? We can have worst takes, best takes.
You
Gus
were on top of things this year.
Gus would definitely do the editing for that without batting an eye, I'm sure. So
Yeah, you want to write that down though, Brian? I think you'd keep track.
I'll tell you what
edit
to do.
it,
You
keep
just
track.
you just have to go back through 100 episodes.
Yeah, can you be the moderator?
Yeah,
I'm gonna need you on that.
I'll moderate.
Big
Well,
week,
fellas.
fellas.
It's gonna be a good week. Good to have you back, Brian. What are we chopping up with here? Episode number 120. Oh boy. 7.
Get through that
127.
bite of food before you lead us in here.
You got
Yeah.
that damn burrito in your cheeks? What you eating, dog?
Pizza. Leftover pizza. It's
Golly.
tasting real nice. But we got
Welcome
episode
in,
127. Welcome, everybody. I'm still chewing a little bit, but we're here. We're charged up. We're fueled.
Crazy.
A little bit of bush latte to wash that down. And yeah, I'm one of your hosts tonight, Gus Manty, from the Musty's on Tap podcast. All right. What we got here? Brian. Brian, welcome back. Good to have you back. Missed you last week. I know you're a little bit sick, but fill
Yeah.
everybody in. What's going on?
I was out sick. Came down, God, early parts of last week. Thought it was just a cold, and then woke up in like hypothermia, like shivering my ass off, dizzy. I'm like, oh fuck, here we go, saddle up. So next 2 days, then, which would have been I think Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday last week. Yeah, fever got me. Pretty much stuck to the bed there for 48 hours and then bounced back after that. So got it out of the way just in time to get back for what seems like a trip of ours that we like to talk about these kind of trips. We like to envision ourselves doing them. And it seems like we might actually be doing one here. Golly, about 48 hours from now,
What you mean by that?
I'll be embarking on a 7-hour car ride.
Where?
The Big V that I've heard so much about, Lake Vermilion, Minnesota. Max, you've been stoked for this. You've been hyping it up. What are your thoughts?
Well, a couple things that I just would like to address here off the rip tonight. First of all, glad you're feeling better. Good to have you back. I was real worried about you last week. You kind of went 0 dark 30 on us for a while there. Is there anything you could attribute this wild sickness to? I mean, just sounded like you got blindsided.
Yeah, really out of nowhere. I mean, I hadn't been sick since January, February this year, so I was going on a good stretch there. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the train of thought where like the more germs you can expose yourself to, you keep your immunity heightened, you keep it prepared, right? You keep the defenses up, keep the front lines active and ready to fight off infection and viruses. But I got somehow.
Yeah. You just couldn't play through it, is what I gathered.
I
Could no
couldn't
chance play through it.
couldn't flu game it. No.
No. Okay. Because I remember there was a pod I'd missed a couple, maybe the last year, 2 years ago, because I was out sick, and I remember you telling me that you were built different, that there was no way you'd be missing a podcast or being sick, and that you also
Well,
don't get sick. So
that
I'm just trying to make
dog,
sure I'm
you
clear here on, what
that
what's
was
going
probably
on
during
right
your
now.
stretch where you were sick like every 2 weeks, on and off. It was just like,
Yeah.
oh man, I'm feeling the weather. Like
I literally thought I just continued to catch COVID from myself. Like I'd get
Probably.
COVID and then just get it again like a week later. It
And you wonder
was
why they make
unbelievable.
boosters, man. Go get that booster, brother.
I I think I set a record in like a 3 month stretch. It was incredible. But yeah, no, man, I'm glad you recovered from the Madison flu. Shout out to your Buckeyes for absolutely taking it to the Badgers
Yeah.
two
I will
Saturdays
say,
ago.
yeah, but I didn't get a chance to
Good
comment on that.
time, like
The
good
that
game. Did you go?
I
Did you
mean, yeah, it was
stay?
a good game. We stayed for pretty much all of it. There was zero energy in that stadium from the
Yeah,
start. Like
yeah.
nobody, like there's no like grand entrance. I mean, it was like a exhibition game, it felt like. And I think the older part of the fan base has definitely, given up on the staff and the team. The students brought some life once they got into the stadium by the second quarter and stayed for a whole quarter and a half after that. But they had a whole, I don't know, it had to have been 100 of them take their shirts off and went up to the top of the stands and started chanting Fire Fickle for like 10 minutes straight when it was like dead
Wow.
silent in the stadium. So interesting stuff down there. But yeah, it was good to see the Buckeyes in action.
Man, that's crazy that it's kind of fallen off that much for the Badgers. Like I remember, God, this was probably 2016, 2017. I think it was Halloween game, Madison and Ohio State played, and it was like the most electric college football game I've ever been to. I
Yeah.
think Wisconsin won. Ohio State was ranked, I think, one or two at the time, I want to say, and they came into Madison and got rolled. And just the campus was insane after and stuff. But sounds like it's kind of just gone downhill for them last
Yeah.
couple
I mean,
years here.
they went to Oregon then after the week after Ohio State. It's like, holy shit, this can be bad. And
Yeah.
they actually like gave them a dogfight for a few quarters. And they actually scored a touchdown, which they haven't done in two plus games. So I
All
don't
right,
know.
well, enough CFB talk. We got Vermilion on the docket here. Just kind of shored up the plans here over the past week or so. We've been in talks about doing a Lake Vermilion November send for a couple years now. Didn't put it together last year, and this year, I would say, yeah, we're making it happen. So, I mean. I think we'll kick it off there. We got a great guest on here this evening that we're going to get to, but maybe just a little preview on the trip we got ahead of ourselves here. Brian, I'm going to start with you because some are questioning a little bit your excitement level heading into the trip. Not trying to stir any drama up here, but I feel like you've been
Oh,
kind
you
of
bet.
talking down on the Big V over the last couple days. So, you said I believe you called it a glorified Lake Tomahawk at one point in time in the group
I
chat,
did say that. I did say that.
and
A bigger Lake
amongst
Tomahawk.
amongst some other things. So, just trying to gauge your excitement level here. Tuesday night, 48 hours, you're going to be on the road heading to Lake Vermilion.
Well, look, I just like to try and keep my expectations, low, try and keep, kind of a calm demeanor going into this. I know what's in store. It's going to be very cold. It's going to
Ah,
be what I've heard, according to you guys, is like the wind up there is like constant tornado. I mean, it's like blowing all the time, making me think this is going to be an absolute grind, which we seem to get every fall. So that's nothing new. I
can I
will
stop
say,
you real quick?
no, no, hold on, Max.
Okay,
I will say, I will say, I, I, I will be a lot more excited if I
it's
make
great.
the 7 hour car ride without any issues. I'm a little worried about this drive just
Why?
because I got
Why?
3 hours to Eau Claire. Is that right? 3 hours? And then
Yep.
I head
Yeah.
north from there to Duluth. And I will be
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
going past almost the exact spot where Max and I totaled a vehicle on a deer about 5 years ago. And it's also going to be pitch black that time I get there. So I just need to get through the stretch, get to the damn cabin, and I'll be very happy.
Well,
Okay.
at least this time you have a car where it's, high beams or actual high beams. Your last car or two cars ago, whatever that was, that
High
was
beams,
rough.
like, they might help, but these things sneak up on you quick. I've got
Okay.
two to my
True.
name now.
Couple things to ease your mind
Some
here,
bodies.
Brian. So,
Deer.
first thing here. weather on Friday and Saturday, high wind of 3 miles an hour on Friday,
Whoa,
and a high wind of 6 miles an hour on Saturday. So
that sounds nice.
just want to calm your nerves there on it being super sporty out on the Big V this weekend. And then as far as hitting a deer, man, I mean, you just got to keep your head on a swivel, really. And
Yeah,
I was with you that morning. A couple things were going against us here. One, I don't even think you had your brights on. Two, you were half asleep because I believe it was like 4:45 in the morning.
yeah.
So at least
Yeah, yeah.
at least this time you're going to be you driving, late afternoon, early evening. Should be some more cars on the road. It's not going to be 4:45 in the morning. So, I know you got more experience now.
Yeah. 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 You know what? No fear. I'm not even gonna think about it. And I'm just gonna plow right on through. Still need to get that cattle grate plow thing on the front of my car, but
No
You just
rush
maybe
need a
too.
next
truck.
You're
next
not
truck.
getting up there for anything. You're just getting up there to sleep at that point. So,
Yep, that's very true.
Gus, turning it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your head at here? You glad this trip came together? You've been, kind of on a smash fest a little bit up in the North Woods of Wisconsin. Sounds like it's been so-so the last maybe day or two, but you good leaving the bite in the North Woods to head over to Vermilion.
I mean, if it's Vermilion, I'm pretty good leaving just about anything to go head to that lake. So either way, we're gonna make it a bender weekend, and you guys are gonna come up here, or we're gonna, do Vermilion or something. We're gonna come up with something. But then I got closer and closer to. We finally got like a weather report. We could look at an actual 10-day, 14-day forecast and get pretty good, honest, idea of what it's going to be. Because if it was going to be roaring like 20 to 30 miles an hour, Big V's out of the question, pretty much for us. I mean, I know you can hide, but being in a tiller, we would get soaked, and that's a little bit dangerous when the water temps are cold, and yeah, not ideal. But I'm really, really pumped to go there. The bite this season or this October has been actually quite good up in the Northwoods. There's been a couple rough stretches, and pretty much every time it's been rough is like on a warm up, and we're getting a cool down. So my guess is Vermilion's going to be good. Northern Wisconsin's going to be good. Everywhere is going to be pretty darn good coming up here, especially especially lakes that have the Cisco whitefish spawn coming up. I think we got full moon on Tuesday of next week. I want to say one of those days, and if the temps in the lakes are getting cool enough, if they're dropping, well into the 40s and hopefully mid 40s, like it could really start happening, and that that typically kicks the muskies into high gear from what I've seen over the years on fishing that like late October, early November to first or second weekend of November, like that's a really good time to get you know, big rubber baits up kind of on the brake lines, trolling on the brake lines, just covering ground and looking for those big pods. I'm stoked. We have made some purchases because our giant baits here for northern Wisconsin, those are sometimes just snacks for some of these vermilion fish. So Max, I know you got a little care package arriving with yourself that you got at Thorn Bros. So what's your
Yeah.
stoke level? What'd you get in the care package? What's going through your head right now?
Yeah, 2025 after show season was the year of no new baits. So,
That's
man, was
right.
it was fun going to Thorn Bros and picking up some giant rubber lures. So, picked up an Ultra Dog, which I believe is um
1.5 pounds?
yeah, but oh yeah, it is. But
Oh,
I believe it's like custom to Thorn Brothers, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. Yep.
So that thing is hilariously big. I've never thrown a pound and a half bulldog. Looking forward to getting used to throwing that thing around this weekend. Picked up a couple monster medusas, which I actually have never thrown. I've only thrown husky medusas, and got a couple baits for some trolling as well. So Should be fun throwing some giant rubber baits over some rocks and seeing what happens. I mean, I'd probably say my expectations, unlike Brian, are probably a little too high. I've been wanting to do this trip now for a couple of years, ever since we went there for the PMTT. Specifically at this time of year, I just thought it could set up so fun, for what we would want to do. I'm sure fish are still in open water, but we're not, at least Brian and I aren't super proficient at the open water stuff. So, having these muskies potentially be up kind of on the rocks or closer to the breaks just sounds perfect for us. I think it's gonna hopefully set up really good with the wind that we're getting, the weather that we're getting. I guess I'll just see what how this sounds next week when we come back. But I
Do a
do
little
feel
recap.
like it's setting up really nicely. And honestly, I've kind of joked around this year, like my trips have just for whatever reason fallen around like some of the worst weather stretches of the year, either the tournament scene or getting up to Eagle River this year. It's just been not a lot of days of good weather. And so I'm just happy that we're getting good fishable weather. It looks like there's a little bit of a warm up that's happening up there right now too, that you're dealing with in northern Wisconsin. And that was like the one thing I was worried about was getting some big southeast winds. We've gotten a lot of those in the cities here this past month, a lot of southeast winds. It's been so windy here, like day in, day out, it's just been blowing. So the fact that it's gonna lay down literally the day we get there into, I think Sunday it kicks up a little bit, but to have, 2 full days, Friday and Saturday of low wind is just like, I'm so excited. It's gonna be,
How
it's gonna be a
many
blast. It just makes everything easier. Fishing, throwing big baits, fishing at night, it's just everything's gonna be easier.
how many fish in your high expectations are getting in the boat?
I mean, I'd be happy with just a couple fish, honestly. Like to go up there and get a
Well,
few
like,
really good bites, like
yeah,
3, 4 fish in, you know, 3 days.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're just hoping that they're the right bites, right? So, I mean, there's not very often us three get to be on a body of water where you have a legitimate chance at catching, 40-pound fish, 50-inch plus fish. So that's definitely a possibility. Like, it'd be great if it happened. If it doesn't, it's all good. But yeah, just getting a few fish in the boat would be awesome.
I
Yeah.
agree there. I don't know. I'm gonna keep I don't know. I'm gonna keep expectations right at. I mean, I'm super freaking pumped, but trying to keep them even keel. They got Brian, who's just like he's saying low expectations, Max with the high. I'll be right in the middle ground there. Um,
Well, it's
try
late
to.
fall. I mean,
That's what I was about to
not
add. It's
easy to
like,
get bites. Like it's tight bite windows, and it's just the reality of this time of year. So
yeah, you get a
But it's
couple bites a
Vermilion.
day.
They gotta be jumping in the boat.
shut up.
It ain't how it works, bud. It ain't how it works. But when they do want to go, it is pretty fun. We got to see it at least for a little bit in August. So
Yeah, I would just like this. I honestly getting a follow from a big ass white Minnesota fish would be something new and fun for me.
yeah, you haven't caught a leecher yet, have you, Brian? We fished there once. You went over.
Yeah, yeah,
That was it.
no, no leecher.
I mean, they look different over there. They got that big glow in the water. They're super blonde. Um, yeah, it's cool. It's definitely different. And I think, where my expectations are probably high, it's not so much of like the amount of fish, which I do think, you have the ability to go up there and catch, a good amount of fish, but it's just more so my expectations are on trying to have one of us hook into a big one.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna put our time in. We're gonna fish a little bit at night. We're gonna get up early. I mean, we pretty much are planning this trip around sleep as much as necessary, but not oversleeping. And just chucking a lot. I mean, we got three of us chucking. We can rotate who throws the giant baits, or two of us throw the giant baits, and rotate something in there like a swim bait or a smaller jerk bait, glide bait, something easier. But I don't
That's
know.
the good thing about like the fall trip like this is it's not bright out at 4:30, 5 a.m. like it is in July. So you're not breaking your back trying to get 3 hours of sleep.
No.
But
I saw
uh,
sunrise is like 7:53 on Friday and Saturday.
what?
Sunrise is like
Doesn't seem
it's like
right.
the
I feel like
late
For
sunrise is
Vermilion
like,
it's a lot more north than like
it's the latest
Appleton
of the
or
year
here. Yeah,
because
because
fall back's on Sunday.
oh, really?
yeah. Yeah.
Damn. Well, that's nice.
It would be
Um,
nice.
yeah. Yeah, it'll be nice too. We got a good little pad for the weekend. Max, it sounds like you had looked into it and we'll be able to park the boat in the water, keep it in there.
Yeah, fish in, fish out experience.
That'll be sweet.
Yeah. And we also are gonna have Mr. Ryan Becker, Mr. Clayton Spees, and Ryan's cousin coming with. So they're going to be staying at the cabin with us as well. So we're going to be rocking two boats, six people, full cruise, and it's going to be a lot of baits chucking, a lot of time on the water. So hopefully we got some good news to bring back to you guys next week. But otherwise, if you guys got nothing else to add here on the Vermilion Talk, we got our guest on here in a second. It is David Park, who most everybody is going to know as DKAM Fishing on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And if you haven't seen him, then I guess you haven't been looking at your reels or For You pages or whatever, because he's been going quite viral with some of his musky videos. So we're pretty pumped to have him on, chat with him. So without further ado, here comes the interview with David. All right, here on the line we have David Park, aka DKAM Fishing on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, possibly another thing I might be missing, but those are the three main ones. So, David, it's good to have you on. You are the first New Jersey guest. Welcome to the pod. How are you doing tonight?
Doing good. I appreciate you guys having me.
It's a pleasure. I can't wait to get right into it. I don't know if have you been on a podcast before?
One didn't go
One.
too well. I was a little nervous, so this is the second one.
I know how that goes too. I was on the Backlash pod before we even started our podcast, and I think I stopped mid sentence on answering a question, and just handed the mic to the next person when we were doing it live
Take it,
at
get
the
away from me.
Wausau. Yeah, I was just like, get it away. Yeah, so I know how that goes, and I mean, I don't know about you guys, Max and Brian, but I was pretty damn nervous when we were shooting a lot of our first episodes for a long time. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Took
I
me a
don't
minute to
know.
get over it.
Stuff
Edit
is
bun's a
on
nice
the
thing.
internet forever.
Yeah, true. Yeah, no, I'm pumped to dive in here this evening, man. I mean, I feel like you've just shown up on my phone and laptop now for a while, and so it's gonna be cool to kind of hear some of your stories and places you fished. But maybe let's just start off the rip here. So, I mean, when did the YouTube channel start? How did it start? What were you doing when you kind of launched it? Was it always muskies, or kind of give us the background on how this thing got going?
So I started out fishing. I fed them. Sorry, my girlfriend was asking if we fed the dogs.
That's all good.
I actually started out fishing for bullhead in Ohio with my grandpa, and that's where it all began. And then eventually that progressed into bass fishing, which I'm sure that's everyone here. Eventually you get the itch for that, and then we actually have a pike river near me called the Passaic, which is about 15 minutes away from where I grew up. And so I'd spend a lot of time there pike fishing. and throughout middle school and high school, I'd go there pike fishing every day. And so I got really good at that. And then I shipped off to college in Nebraska. And so for 6 years that I lived there, I took a hiatus from fishing. I didn't fish. I obviously had other priorities like drinking and watching what our football team is. But while I was at Nebraska, I majored in advertising and public relations. So we did a bunch of work with filmmaking and cameras and video, and so I really learned how to make videos that stand out. And what did I do as soon as I graduated? I took a job in New York City that had nothing to do with my major, and so I moved out to New York for a sales job, and I fell back in love with fishing. And so, every day after work or sometimes before work, I'd go out pike fishing. And eventually, I bought a GoPro, and then the tech layoffs happened actually. And so I got laid off from my job. And I was sitting there thinking about what I could do, and I wanted to get into marketing or advertising or something like that. And because I didn't take any internships in college, it was really hard to get a foot up on the competition for job applicants and whatnot. So I ended up, making videos for fishing and posting them online, thinking that maybe that could help my resume and eventually work into getting a job in the field. And then it just took off. Little known fact, if you post a video of your girlfriend fishing, that goes mega viral and blows up and does millions of views. So,
maybe we should be interviewing her right now then.
Yeah. So what started as a hobby eventually turned into a full-time job, and I started posting YouTube videos, and that gained traction pretty quickly with TikTok, and then eventually YouTube, and pike fishing and bass fishing and smallmouth fishing and whatnot. And then one day I got bored of pike fishing, so I decided, why not go try for the fish at 10,000 casts that I've heard of a million times. My whole life been pike fishing, so I figured, what the hell? Why not? Let's go try it. And my buddy brought his John boat out, and we launched it on this musky lake. And I took one cast, then I took a second cast, then I took a third cast, and on my fourth cast, a muskie showed up, and I was set up for failure from there.
That's wild.
Too easy.
So it was probably like a 38 or 39-inch fish, maybe 40. But I was hooked. I had muskie fever all the way from then on.
How close was that musky lake from where you were living? Like, do you have a hard time figuring out where to go
No.
first trip, or were you guys kind of pointed in the right direction?
So there's a couple lakes within the immediate vicinity, and we'll get into that later. But we had one lake in mind, and we went out, and I'll name drop it. It's called Monksville, nicknamed Skunksville, because it is notorious for nobody catching any fish. Bass, smallmouth, walleye, it doesn't matter. Like, you go there,
Wow.
you should expect to not catch anything.
Do they
But
stock it?
they do stock it. They stock the ever living fuck out of it. I don't know if I'm allowed to. Sorry, you guys are gonna have to put an NSFW on your.
That's all good, dude. You can swear as much as you want.
They stock it a lot, and I don't know why. And maybe it's just because nobody has figured it out yet, but it is a notoriously difficult place to fish. And so, we went and catching that fish on the fourth cast, I was hooked. Every waking moment, it's like, how do I catch a muskie? Where can I find muskie? What can I do to catch muskie? So on and so forth. What lures can I spend my money on? And from that point on, that's what consumed me every waking moment. And took me 30 days to catch my second muskie from that point. And I caught the figure eight, which is the worst figure eight you've ever seen. Somehow that fish still ate. And then it took me 6 months to catch my third. and I had no trouble finding the fish. Um, I was pretty good at finding them, getting them to move, getting them to come in the boat. I had a bunch of follows. I just couldn't get them to eat. And part of that was my background in pike fishing. Pike fishing, you slow down next to the boat and they fucking annihilate it. The second you pause, or you're next to the boat and you go twitch, pause, or whatever, it's that slow pause that the pike really seemed to trigger. And, I was thinking, since muskie are the same family, like it's going to be much of the same. But it wasn't. These fish would follow in and just would spook off, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me why that was, until one day I had weeds on my lure, and I decided to burn that fucker in all the way to the boat, and then muskie just comes out of nowhere and smokes it. At that point, it clicked. Like the light bulb went on. It was like reaction bite. That's what I was missing. And so, adding in that speed and that little bit of change in your retrieve, from the third muskie to the 20th muskie was like 30 days. So it really changed my fishing. And now it's hard to go back to pike fishing because I fish too fast.
Yeah.
Pike fishing, you got to slow down. So it's, you win some, you lose some. But that's how I started my YouTube channel, got into muskie fishing. Back in college, actually, I remember, I don't know if you guys know Cody Dalton, Muskie Addict on TikTok.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting there during COVID and watching his muskie video, like he's jigging and trash in a dam, and a fish comes out of nowhere and smokes it, or that figure eight video where it's like, get the fucking net, get the net.
Yeah.
And I remember watching those in college, like, wow, that's awesome. I wish I could one day do that. And then when I moved back to New Jersey, I started watching this channel called Uncle Larry Outdoors, which you guys have probably seen. One of their videos where they're sitting there and that kid's sitting in front of the camera. It's like it's a something bite. He's holding a bass, and the kid in the background is like, it's a giant, and he pulls a 13-pound bass.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one.
Their video,
The kayaks.
yep, on the kayaks. Their
So
video
funny.
bought out by like a advertising company, and they put it on the NBA finals and shit like that. It's
That's
crazy.
crazy.
But
Wow.
so that's where it started, like the inspiration. And then eventually, I started watching New Jersey videos and wanting to steal their spots and figure out how to fish. And then it progressed into muskie fishing. And sometimes I wonder why I fish for these stupid fucking fish.
Is this all you're after right now?
Right now, yeah. The muskie fever hasn't subsided. I burned out a little bit here and there, but every now and then I wonder why I didn't choose crappie fishing, or
Yeah. A lot less stressful.
'Cause there's
Yeah.
always something out there that'll eat it.
Yep.
That's what you want.
What do you kind of attribute to, like, you mentioned you gained traction pretty quickly once you started making this content. Was there, like, were you kind of in like a niche kind of market at the time, or was it like kind of the style of your editing, or is there something you can point to that maybe kind of catapulted your content?
I would say it was the style of my editing. I started off bass fishing and pike fishing and whatnot, and just kind of sharing my fishing adventures. But eventually it turned into muskie fishing. And, if you look back at fishing content online, originally, like maybe from COVID on to like 2022, it was just raw fishing clips that were going mega viral. Everyone was watching those. Those are the clips that the algorithm was pushing. And then eventually, some dumbass decided to do fucking voiceovers and completely fucked everything up.
Yeah.
I will say, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but you have 10 out of 10 YouTube hook voice. What I mean by that, like it's the, I don't know, however you do it. I might have to have you towards the end of the pod give us maybe a send off in the YouTube voice. But it
Like that
it
first
hooks
10
you to the
seconds.
point, yeah, where like you just want to kind of keep, the voice will come up and then the next, video will start playing and like the way it just kind of flows, it's super easy to watch, like a 20-second clip. It's hard to spin off of it, you know what I mean? So I don't know how you, if that was like through your college education or just like
Oh,
kind of found your like, I don't know, flow on how you do this stuff, but it definitely has a way of standing out on the
yeah.
short, kind of catchy.
College kind of taught me how to derive information from analytics. So, I can look at watch time and shit like that and figure out what works and what doesn't. But somewhere in 2022, I started seeing more voiceovers, and I started seeing raw fishing clips not do as well. And so you watch other videos and you take away what you like, what you don't like, and you kind of formulate your own style, um, per se. And eventually that turns into full on voiceovers. And rule of thumb is like the more flamboyant you sound, the better they do for some reason. I don't know.
No way.
That's what Max was getting at.
Okay, so as interesting as the kind of algorithm stuff is, I do want to switch gears a bit and start talking about some actual muskie fishing that you've been doing, because you've been crushing a lot of fish now, at least recently, and I think if I'm not mistaken, you just did a trip out to Minnesota, right? In my neck of the woods.
Yes.
So tell us about that. I mean, was that your first time muskie fishing in Minnesota? How did it go? Looked like you guys were able to put a few in the bag.
So last year, Frable and Savage Gear invited me out to Leech Lake, and I hooked, I think it was 5 or 6 muskies, and I lost them all. And then I had a long fucking drive home after that. So
I bet.
I had a bone to pick with Leech Lake, and I hit up the kind fellows from Trapper's Landing Lodge. Josh Bullivant is the guy who runs it there, and he's a great dude. And I messaged him and said, "Hey, I'm going to the Minnesota game on Friday, October 17th,
Oh, nice.
fishing after that." And so I drove up and we went to the Minnesota Nebraska game, and Nebraska was heavily favored and got their asses whooped, which is always great. And so had a 3.5 hour drive up to Leech Lake, and we fished it. And I wanted to do something with jigging, because not that many people do that there. It's mostly snipers and people casting the rock reefs and whatnot. And so I figured we'd give it a shot with jigging. And so Josh and I were jigging on the back of the boat, and then his 11-year-old son was jigging on the front of the boat. And his son ended up having like 3 or 4 follows from really hot fish. He couldn't convert them, but Josh and I were struggling to get anything to react to our lures. And eventually we decided to go check out Walker Bay, or the area between Walker Bay and the main lake or whatever. I don't know the names of it. You guys are going to have to help me there. But we went back there the last day, and lo and behold, a big fish comes up off the bottom to follow my lure, and I started walking it up. We were using live scope, or Lowrance's poverty version of live scope, whatever it's called. There's like a delay.
Active target, maybe.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, there's a delay every time you move your rod and on the screen. But fish came off the bottom, and I started walking it up towards the boat, and it came up, and Josh, his biggest fish was a 55 out of Mille Lacs, and that was before live scope. So he's one of the few people who can say that he caught a 55 the old school way. And he called that fish a fucking super tanker. So I'm not going to speculate how big it was, but it came up to the boat and fucked off forever. But
Damn.
We contacted a pretty big fish, and I had another long drive home after a Nebraska loss and Minnesota skunk. So I will definitely be back to Leech Lake again, because like I said, I have a bone to pick with that place. But Minnesota, no muskies yet out of there. I'm sure I could go to the Metro Lakes and cross that state off my list. But New York, New Jersey, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, uh, Iowa, Nebraska, Wisconsin so far. And so I think
Pretty good.
Kentucky's left on the list, Indiana's left on the list, Illinois is left on the list.
Tennessee.
Michigan.
Canada. I did catch one in Canada. Tennessee, you're right. And little known places are Alabama. Some places muskie can venture in. And then there's one lake in Georgia that I did some research on that they stocked. And I don't know if there's still muskie in there, but I'm sure there is. Few and far in between. But
It's kind of crazy to think about.
Bathwater?
Yeah, like
Boiling.
up here, the water temp gets about 75, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, these things are going belly up." So it's hard to believe in Georgia that they're surviving.
I think it's a natural spring lake up in the mountains near the border of Tennessee. Wherever the fuck it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of those colder states. And so they stocked that lake, and I don't know if they continue stocking it, but there were muskie in there at some point within the last 10 years. And I would assume if it was within the last 10 years, there's probably a fish remaining that's reaching maturity. And so that's definitely a place on my bucket list to hit in the next year or so, just to see
Yeah.
what's going on. But
You said
So
you
you
caught
got-
one in Canada. Was that with Pete Mena?
that was, yeah. No, actually, so we had planned something with Pete to go to Canada and fish the November kind of cold water bite that goes on there at Lake St. Clair, where they follow the shad up into the river mouse. And all week, actually, my cousin had passed away right before then, and my way of coping with fishing or coping with trauma is fishing. And so I had a little bit of time in between then and the funeral, so I decided to go up and fish. And we went up to Lake St. Clair, and Pete caught a fish, and everyone else in the boat caught a fish, and we were there for 4 days. And I had a couple follow and lost two, and had not caught a fish. And so on the way out, Pete had left early in the morning, and my buddy and I decided to stop at the Detroit River and try jigging. And we only had 2 hours or so to fish. And first 30 minutes, he catches a 45 incher. And fuck. And we keep on jigging, and eventually I ended up catching a 47 and 3/4 fish, like right after he said we have 10 minutes and then we're gonna pull the boat out and leave. And I caught that fish. And my cousin, who passed away earlier in the week, he had worn 47 and 74 his whole hockey career. So
That's pretty
that's his
sweet.
way of telling me to go fuck yourself with skunking.
He had to belly out.
So that was the St. Clair fish in Canada with Pete. And it's funny how things work out, right?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So are you more eager to go try and chase in Georgia than you are to go maybe more into like Ontario or somewhere else in Canada and try and catch one there?
I think it'd be sweet to be, one of the only people to
Yeah.
catch a fish in Georgia on camera, but at the same time, it's like, the St. Lawrence River has fucking 60 inchers. Like that would also be just as sweet.
Yeah.
Now, albeit I haven't seen an official bump board picture of a fish that big yet. I heard the ministry found a floating fish that was 60 and a half last year and a half ago by the dam.
Did they take a picture?
I haven't seen it. They talked about it, a
Classic.
picture of it measured. The biggest I've heard of is Colin Vader's. Was it a 58 and a half or 59 and a half? Rolling.
9.5, I want to say, and it was like 58 pounds.
You guys seen the pictures of that fish?
Yeah, was that like last
Yeah.
year?
Two
Last
years ago?
fall. maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Two
His
years ago.
story talking about it was insane.
Yeah.
That was crazy. And just to catch it on a bait that he makes, I bet is super rewarding. So St. Lawrence River is definitely on the hit list for sure.
It's
Eventually.
certainly the biggest fish I've heard of, you know, like
In the most recent times, like
in most recent time, somewhat not firsthand, but firsthand type deal. But
I
go ahead, Gus.
I was just gonna add like actually videotaped or whatever,
Yeah,
you know,
documented. Yeah.
documented.
I would argue that's the world record, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, Pete,
You could make somewhat of a case for that. Yeah.
I always talk about how, you know, the current records are bullshit, and like he was actually on the board with I guess Hayward with
Yeah.
they were
Like
verifying it, and he wasn't really all for it, but they still went forward with certifying it, and you know he has questions about that, and you know I guess everywhere that's the case with New Jersey. We'll get into that. Like there's a little bit of skepticism around our state record, so
Is
if
it
it's
is it
not a state
doable?
record unless there's some controversy
Yeah.
around it.
yeah,
What
exactly.
is the muskie state record in New Jersey, and is it beatable?
It's 42 pounds and 13 ounces right now. Um, I would say it's definitely beatable. There's fish swimming around that big in our state. You know, we might have caught one that was close to that last winter, but we didn't want to weigh it or do whatever and overstress the fish, so we ended up just releasing it. But you know, we'll get into the nitty gritty of that as well once we cover New Jersey.
Yeah, I'm curious about New Jersey. If we want to go there now, I've heard a lot. I mean, through the hunks about Pennsylvania muskie, about upstate New York muskie, but I feel like nobody really talks about New Jersey.
No, they
Uh,
don't.
is there like many musky waters? Are a lot of them? Is there standalone lakes? Are they all kind of flowages, river systems? What does the scene look like out there?
So it started in the late 60s or early 70s. Uh, Actually, Pennsylvania stocked the Delaware River. And so you guys may have heard of the Delaware River with George Washington crossing it and whatnot
Hmm.
in history
Heard
class.
of it. Heard of that guy.
PA started stocking the Delaware in the late 60s or early 70s, whenever that was. And you know that fishery was established for a while, and for a while there, you know, the state record for New Jersey was teetering back and forth. Like some guy caught a 35 pounder, and then it was followed up with a 36 pounder, and then a 37 pounder, and eventually, some guys decided like, what the hell? Why don't we have any muskie in our lakes? So in 1985, a bunch of jolly old fellows decided to slush fund a bunch of money and head up to the Caleb's Fish Hatchery in Wisconsin and inquire about buying fish. And you know, they struck out a deal, and Caleb's Fish Hatchery actually flew out some muskie to Newark Airport. This was 1985, mind you, and a bunch of these guys went out to the airport with their trucks, and they met the plane on the tarmac and grabbed a bunch of those aerated fish bags, threw them in their truck, and drove them up to the very first lake they stocked, which is Greenwood Lake, um, and drove them straight to the lake, threw them in there, and that was the beginning of Lake Muskie in New Jersey. And so that went on for a little while there, and then like 5 years, give or take. And then in 1990, they came in contact with the Minnesota Muskie Farm and started buying leech Lakers and stocking them into our lakes. And let me pull up my notes here. So obviously they had the permission of the state to stock those fish originally, and it was unorganized. and it was just them compiling a bunch of money and buying these fish and then stocking them. And eventually it organized and they turned into a New Jersey Muskie Inc. chapter, which I don't know if you guys are in Muskie Inc. right now or if you have many of them up there in Wisconsin. I assume you do.
Yep. Oh yeah.
But it was like $10 per fish for a 10 or 11-inch fish at that point. And then 1990 rolled around, and that's when they got in contact with the Minnesota Muskie Farm, and the Minnesota Muskie Farm had a shipping route for muskies where they were driving them to like Ohio and states all over the country, and after inquiring with them, they were able to get on the shipping route, and they were able to buy larger quantities of fish for cheaper. So that changed the whole game, and but they were just stocking that one lake because the state wouldn't approve it. And so this fellow named Bruce Rupel, New Jersey muskie fishing legend, he worked with the state, and he was actually a biologist at the time, and got proposals streamlined, and eventually got approval to stock other places. And his vision was to have like eventually, not having to buy muskies from other places, but having New Jersey stock their own. And in 1993, that came to fruition. The state, which we've always had a hatchery with trout and other fish. The state decided to start raising muskie, and so Craig Lemon, he's one of the best in the business. He runs the hatcheries, ran it for 40 years now, I think. But he worked hand in hand with Michigan for learning how to raise muskie, how to hatch their eggs, how to get brood stock and whatnot, and bring them in the hatchery, and that whole workflow. They worked with Michigan, and within 2 or 3 years, he was so efficient with it that he was one of the best in the business. And other states started getting muskie from New Jersey, and it's remained that way ever since. He has been just a pioneer in raising muskie and knowing how to do it. Recently, Pennsylvania actually fired their superintendent for their hatchery, and he was one of the only guys that knew how to raise muskie. And since they fired him, it's been an epic failure. And so they had to turn to Craig, and Craig ended up sending some of his guys out there to teach him how to do it. But that was 1993, the first time that the state stocked muskie. I think
that's crazy. That's so recent. Like we have, Gus, when's our earliest stocking record in Wisconsin?
70s, 60s, I don't know.
Yeah, like you see all the time looking through different lakes, like 80s, 70s, whatever. So to think that they just started in 93, it's nuts.
Yeah. 1995 was when we really, really got good at it. And then since then, we've stocked a variety of different lakes within the area. They're all within like an hour and a half drive of each other, which is nice. So you don't have to drive too far. But, the original strain was Caleb's Muskie, which I didn't know that until recently. I was doing, research. I had thought it was always Leech Lake strain, but since then, they go in with trap nets every spring, and they get a bunch of brood stock. And in the years since, we've had Chautauqua muskie, Pymatuning muskie, obviously the Leech Lake strainers that are left over in the Caleb strains. And so over the years, those strains have mixed, and we have what are now New Jersey muskie. I'd say it wasn't until the mid 2000s, until you started seeing 50 inchers pop up. New Jersey muskie really kind of peaked in like 2010 to 2015, obviously. That was when most of those fish were finally reaching maturity. Since then, we've had a lot of weed killer and herbicide and whatnot kind of fuck things up, but there's still 50 inchers to be caught swimming around. They're just their behavior has changed because of the weed killer. You know, when it peaked in 2010 to 2015, there really wasn't that much weed killer. That was back when New Jersey was still pretty conservative with handing out licenses and whatnot. But it's they've done a great job with it. And back then it was pretty high density. I'd say now it's a very low density fishery. We still stock a fuck ton in every lake, but we have a fish called pickerel, which is very plentiful. And I don't know if you guys have ever helped stock muskies, but when you put those fingerlings in, they're the dumbest fucking fish you could ever imagine. They just sit there on the surface and they don't move, which makes them very susceptible to birds or other fish that are looking for an easy meal. And if you stock, for instance, wiper or hybrid striped bass or fish that we stock in our lakes, you put one of the baby wiper in, they're 100 feet away the second you drop them in the water. The muskies just sit there and they don't move right away. So whereas we may put 3,000 in a lake per year, I would say probably 50 of them, if we're lucky, make them to 30 inches per year class. So it's a really, really low density fishery, but it makes for a lot of big fish because we don't have that high density number. And the other thing you have to take into account is our forage base is different than a lot of places. We have herring, which most places are shad or Cisco or whatnot. Herring are so plentiful that it really makes those muskie really bad hunters. They can fucking raise up 5 feet in the water, eat 30 herring, and then sink back down, and they're good to go. Versus other places like Leech Lake, for instance, where I fished, 110,000 acres. There might not be bait in every place in the lake, so those fish have to swim miles to find forage, and so they're really good hunters, and so that's why you see, night fishing, being really effective or whatnot. New Jersey, we just have really dumb fucking fish that don't have to swim very far to find their food, so it makes things tough. But I like it because we have really healthy, really big fish, so it works out.
Why sorry, you might have hit on it, but like why doesn't your hatchery, do they just not have like the facilities to hold these fish until they're yearlings, till they get bigger and they can kind of fend for themselves a little bit more once they're released? Or do you know the reasoning behind that, just doing the fingerlings?
They do. I don't know the reasoning behind it. Every once in a while they'll go into a place and put like 117 inches in, but for the most part it's usually like 9 to 12 inches, and then the Delaware River they put like 60,000 fry in. So
Be curious to know how many of those things survive.
Not many. There's no way.
There's no way.
You'd be surprised. The Delaware is probably the highest density fishery that we have around here.
Damn.
It's probably got natural reproduction.
So they say that less than it's probably 1 to 3% of the reproducing fish are successful. And when I hear Craig speak about it, it makes more sense. Like he talks about how when they're raising the fish, like only 40 to 50% of the fish that they or the eggs that they're procuring end up hatching. So imagining in the wild that being successful is crazy. That muskies are able to be successful in that regard. But we don't have very much natural reproduction going on. It's mostly relying on stocking, which is interesting, considering some of the other DNR's stance on things. With like Pete Mano always talks about Wisconsin not stocking enough fish because they're hell bent on natural reproduction and whatnot. But knowing that Craig's doing all the right things and only 40 to 50 to 60% are end up hatching, like can you imagine fish out in the wild. Those eggs being successful and those fish reaching maturity size, which I think is considered 30 inches, right? Or something like that.
Think so.
But it's mind-boggling to me.
It is. It's kind of a tough thing with like the stocking and because we got places here in Wisconsin that are 100% has natural reproduction because they have lakes with tigers and whatnot, but they also stock, and those kind of just end up being high density fisheries. Some of them have big fish and whatnot, but um, there's some that they don't even ever stock, and those pretty much always are low density fisheries. For you guys over there, I don't know where I was going with this, with your stocking. Have you done any pit tagging with your fish to
We have.
know?
I actually caught a fish last year that was tagged. It was 48 and a half. So I caught it in 2024. One of my buddies actually caught that same fish in 2022. He measured it 49 and a half. So I don't know if I fucked up. Fucked up.
Oh boy.
It's Agent Orange in the lakes.
Yeah. So I don't know the bump board tricks that most people do, but I measured.
Everybody's lying, maybe. Maybe you caught him.
I think you caught him.
But that fish had some information on it. In 2016, it was caught at 43 inches, and I think it was 22 pounds at the time. And then in 2017, they netted it again. It was 44 inches and 26 pounds or something like that. And then he caught it in 2022. We'll say it was around the 48 and a half to 49 and a half range. And then I caught it again in 2024 in September. And it was, fucking super tanker. And, I would assume that fish was over 20 years old. I guess the St. Lawrence strain, they say it can reach 50 inches within 9 years.
Holy crap.
Much about that. But in New Jersey, they assume that, it takes 9 to 10 years for that fish to reach 40 inches. So I would say when I caught her, she was well over 15 at that time. And I would be willing to bet she was probably 20 plus years old. But that's the only tag fish that I've caught so far.
What's what's kind of like the muskie culture like in New Jersey? Do you have a bunch of buddies that muskie fish? Do you know of a bunch of people? Is there much pressure on these lakes that you're talking about? Just kind of curious because as Brian alluded to, we haven't heard much about New Jersey muskie fishing. So just wondering kind of what the culture is around it out there.
So there's a bunch of guys that are dedicated to it. Obviously, we have the muskie chapter here in New Jersey, and those guys are pretty hell bent on only catching muskie. But I wouldn't say there's that much muskie fishing pressure. But with that being said, we have 2 million anglers in a small state that you could probably fit 7 or 8 of in Minnesota or Wisconsin, and so you get a lot of anglers going to a limited amount of lakes, and bass fishing pressure is muskie fishing pressure. Those guys throwing spinner baits in the weeds, they hook muskie all the time, and those bass fishing chatter baits or crankbaits or whatnot, they're always contacting muskie, and so having that amount of anglers in this tiny confined space, you get a lot of pressure, and those fish are pretty damn smart.
Is it is as far as the pressure that they're getting? I mean, we hear a lot about trolling out east. I mean, is the New Jersey, are you seeing a lot of people troll it there? Is it a predominantly just typical structure fishing, weed oriented type bites, or is it kind of like, is it a smorgasbord of different stuff you can do out there?
It's a smorgasbord. These fish behave a lot differently just because it is a herring-based fishery. But you
Hmm.
also have to keep into account, we have a ton of bullhead in our lakes, And so there's this one dude who trolls, and every time he catches a big one, he fucking kills a fish and brings it into one of the certified scales. And the woman who owns the sports shop there is, she weighs it and she's like, oh, you killed another muskie. It's about 10 pounds short, but let's cut it open and see what's inside of it. And every time they cut it open, there's fucking bullhead galore. And the problem with bullhead, herring will school up, but bullhead are very scattered. And so, whereas other places I fish, you find, a lot of muskie utilizing the same hunting grounds. So you find condensed fish. It may be a low density fishery, but you're finding, 10, 15 fish in a confined area. The New Jersey fish seem to stay scattered year round. So that's another thing that makes it relatively difficult. So you have to cover a ton of water, and you have weed bite, rock bite, bottom bite, and then obviously open water as well on the herring schools. And so,
What's the stuff you guys like to throw out there? I mean, is it pretty typical? I feel like I see in a lot of your videos you're throwing glide baits.
yep.
But yeah, just kind of curious as to what you and others kind of throw out there.
So glide baits are extremely effective. I started throwing glide baits for pike, and naturally I decided why not throw them for muskie, and that's how I caught my first muskie, and so I moved a bunch after that. A lot of follows, but couldn't convert a lot into bites. And then once I figured out the reaction bite and speed, and really dialing in your cadence, I realized that glide baits were really effective. Actually, the one glide bait that I use that you guys have probably seen a lot of videos of, Poseidon Swim Baits, based out of Nebraska. He made that thing for bass. And, in college, I like sports betting. So I had a bookie. And
Let's go.
in the fraternity across the street from my fraternity. And since I wasn't a very good sports bettor, I became pretty good friends with him, paying him out all the time. And once I started
Man for that.
once I started my YouTube channel, he reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, my buddy makes baits. Like I grew up with him. He makes these glide baits. You should check them out." And it's like, all right. So I looked it up, and I was like, these are the ugliest fucking baits I've ever seen in my life. I reached out to him anyways, and I wasn't that big at the time. And we talked for a little while, and then I ended up not getting any baits, and things kind of died down for a little bit, and my channel blew up. And like a year after that, I reached out to him, and he sent me a bunch of baits, and I went out pike fishing, just fucking annihilated them. And the spring bite rolled around with muskie, and we were casting those up shallow, and they were just obliterating them, unlike anything. Like lots of people with their bucktails at that time of year, and those fish are smart because there's not that many, and they've seen bucktails for however many years before then. And so we changed it up with a bait that you could fish as a bucktail, but pause it, just on a dime, and let it suspend, and then start fucking burning it again. And they really reacted really well to it. And so I grew an affinity for throwing glides for muskie, and eventually I figured out, or I started learning ripping rubber. And for a while there, that was fun. But with all fisheries, the fish catch on eventually, and you got to adapt and figure it out. And especially with posting videos, everyone starts throwing the same bait as you, and so those fish become really educated at a certain point, and you got to adapt and figure out some new shit. And so
Moral of the story here is, Brian, you see what happens when you pay your bookie is you can end up getting a bait sponsor down the road.
It's all
So
about the connections.
just keep that in mind next time you ghost your bookie.
I don't burn any bridges. Never.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't even let the bridge be formed. Just gone. Oof. I got a few things to go on a question about rubber and then also about the glide baits. So in musky fishing, at least like when we started and we started throwing a couple glide baits, we were throwing a phantom and a hellhound, a typical full single-bodied hard bait with a tail or no tail. And that seemed to be the norm, that we could see. And then
Yeah.
you'd watch all these YouTube videos of bass guys because that's, predominantly what's on YouTube for fishing is bass over everything else. And there's all these like single jointed and double jointed glide baits with tails and this and that. And I always thought it's like, man, that's got to be good for muskies too. And we just like never picked up on it. I don't really know anybody that throws them much up here. And then I was watching yours and your videos, and I'm like, oh my God, these fish are going bonkers for it. And I just finally got some myself. I think it's like the G rate, Papa Pete's or something like
Right.
that.
Mhm.
Probably heard of those. Threw them a little bit, and they're legit. I mean,
Yeah.
if people are saying like a hellhound's super easy to work, talk about this being easy to work. You literally can just reel like a bucktail and stop. Reel like a bucktail and stop, and that thing is going to go back and forth, glide, glide, and then stop and suspend.
And then
Um,
if you really get your slack control in, you can chop it, really effectively, and you don't have to use your rod tip at all. And so, guiding, most people are fucking dipshits and have no idea what they're doing, and getting them to get their cadence down using the rod tip along with reeling the slack with like a hellhound or a typical one piece glide bait is super difficult. If you give them a two-piece glide bait, all of a sudden they don't need to use the rod tip, they're just using their reel. And so it's super easy to fish and really easy to teach and just as effective. So glide baits really started with musky fishermen way back in the 1930s or 40s, whatever fucking psychopath decided to take the lip off their crankbait and start doing that. And then eventually, Japan with bass fishing. How I think it was the Japanese mafia originally brought bass over to Japan illegally, and the population there is very, half of them are against the bass being there, and a lot of them are for it. And then eventually, Daiwa and all these companies were formed because of the repercussions of bringing an illegal fish over there. They ended up developing glide baits, and then the bass fishermen here started picking up on it back in early 2000s and mid 2000s with the California bite that was going on with those 20-pound bass that were suddenly there. Since then, I don't think we've had a confirmed 20-pounder since 2009. But they really put glide baits back on the scene, and since then, Texas and Florida and Louisiana and all these states down there with plentiful 10-pound bass, they figured out if you throw a big fucking bait, you're more likely to come across big fucking fish. And musky fishermen, we've been stuck on those one-piece glides, and then recently a lot more people have been throwing those bass style glide baits. Obviously, change the hooks and the split rings, or you're in for a heartbreak. But they're super effective, and it's a presentation that a lot of these fish haven't seen before. So
That's gonna be my new spring tactic next opener. Two-piece glider.
yeah,
Brian, you're gonna
Making my
absolutely dig
chops.
this thing. Yeah, it's
it's interesting. The variety of glide baits that are available. Like you can buy a $20 glide that may do one thing right, but not do everything else right. And then there are glides that are up to $1,000 that these fucking psychopath bass fishermen have developed. And I wouldn't spend that much money. I'd say sticking in the range of $100 to $200, you're going to get a glide that will burn really well and chop really well and do everything that you want. There's a variety of different retrieves that you can do, and I'd stick within that $100 to $200 range. If you're a kid who's looking to get into glide bait fishing, I know that Spro makes a $60 glide. Storm makes a $40 glide. Savage Gear actually has a pretty good glide for $20. But those glides have limitations. They don't do everything that you want them to do. Versus once you start getting in that upper tier of $100 glides, all of a sudden you can burn it, you can chop it, you can pause it, you can do all these fucking things. But I would never go above that $200 range.
That's insane.
That is wild. I got a question there. So with those types of glides, let's just say the ones you're talking in that $100 to $200 range, and since you've obviously used a ton of them, they're in your videos, you've caught a bunch of fish on them. What is the shelf life on them? Like how many fish can be caught on them? Have you bonked them off of rocks, this and that? Because I just did, I just did recently, like the first day I used that Papa Pete, and it was fine. I smashed it into a rock upon, hitting the water, and it was fine. I didn't see a mark on it. It just has a little hook rash, and
Yeah.
that's about it.
So the cheaper ones are made out of plastic. Obviously, those ones they meet a rock. Probably not going to be the best outcome. Once you start getting the more expensive handmade ones, hand painted ones, those ones are resin. They'll still meet their match with a rock, but they're a little more hardy. So and then obviously you have different styles. So the glide that I fish beside in swim baits, it has a rotating hook hanger. So
Yep.
hook a big fish and all that immense pressure is on it. And with that rotating hook hanger, the split rings, you can get away with fishing lighter hooks and lighter split rings, which allows you to control your sink rate. So if you're using beefy hooks and beefy split rings, you're going to sink a lot faster. But if you want to get over the top of the weeds and you have a rotating hook holder, you can fish lighter hooks and lighter split rings and not have to deal with pulling weeds off your lure every 2 seconds. But the longevity with resin is going to be a lot longer than just the cheap plastic. So I've had clients fish the Poseidon swim baits, and I've had them smash them off the docks and rocks, and they've lasted a long time. And I've also had them hit the bait just right on a bridge or something else, and the bait blows up to a million pieces. So no matter what price range you're buying those glides, they're susceptible. But generally speaking, the $100 glides are going to be a little bit more hardy, I'd say, for sure.
Okay. I got one last question on glides, and then I was going to ask one about rubber that I'm very curious about. For these types of glides to chop and whatever, what's your rod and like gear ratio of choice?
So I like to use just my reel when I'm retrieving. So I've been using the PC frame reels that have really caught fire lately. In years past, you've had to pay $300 or $400 for a reel that works efficiently and you can trust and won't have those drag slips and won't break. And early on in my pike fishing, before I even got into muskie fishing, PC frame reel, I reached out and I started using those 8-to-1 gear ratios just because they pick up a fuck ton of slack, and you can really control the slack that you leave out or the slack that you don't leave out with each revolution turn of the reel handle. And so I'll use an 8-to-1 gear ratio. I actually like the 400 a lot for glides just because it picks up more slack with each revolution of the reel handle. The 300 works pretty good, but you have to turn the reel a little bit more because it picks up a little less slack. But both are just as effective. And rod wise, I use the heaviest rod I can possibly use. I like a fucking pool cue or a broomstick, as you would call it. And I don't really set the hook. I'm using lighter hooks. They're called Owner ST46s, 3X strong or something like that. They're super, super light hooks. And you look at them and you're like, holy shit, these are going to bend out the second you hook a big fish. But they don't, and I think that has something to do with the turning hook holders. But using a heavier rod with obviously the 8-to-1 gear ratio, you don't need to move your rod tip out of position, which I'm sure you guys have had. I've had it happen where your rod tip's out of position, a fish hits, and you have no room to set the hook. I keep that rod pointed at the bait. Use just the reel. A fish hits, I just lean, and they seem to set themselves. The hooks. So, um, you know, I use a
No.
rod that I can also throw rubber on, but I can throw light lures on it, and if your technique is good, you should have no issue. A lot of the times with clients like bass fishermen, they have a fish hit and they fucking set the hook really hard. They rip the hooks out of the mouth. You don't need to do that with a heavy rod. You can just lean and reel, and they'll set themselves. But that's typically the equipment choice that I go with.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes sense, and those are good tips to have with those glide baits. And what I wanted to ask about rubber, which you said you're talking about all these strains getting put in New Jersey, and it's basically just like conglomerated into the New Jersey strain, as you're saying. What what kind of styles of rubber ripping have you done to get the bites? I kind of asked that because here in Wisconsin, it's notorious for ripping the rubber pretty damn hard for a summer
Yep.
bite, and of course that you can catch them slow pulling it, and then over in Minnesota, it's a little bit more well known for slow pulls and sweeps. Um, of course, you can catch them there ripping rubber super hard as well, but I was wondering like how they're kind of reacting to rubber because when they really want it, fish will inhale it more than any other bait.
So I like to break it down into upper water column, mid water column, and lower water column, right? If you're fishing the upper water column, it may be a major or a minor, or some time that you think those fish are suspended, or maybe you're fishing really shallow weeds. Obviously, you're going to be ripping that rubber at Mach Jesus as hard as you can, as fast as you can, keeping it as high up in the water column as you can. Other times you may think the fish are going to be a little bit lower in the water column, and so you're going to be making long sweeping pulls with a little bit more of a pause in between. And then there are times where you're bottom bouncing or keeping that rubber as low as you can in the water column. And so, if I'm spot locked on an area, I'm going to fish all three phases of the water column. I'm going to start up high, and I'm going to work my way down while fan casting, and then eventually I'm going to end on bottom bouncing, or as slow as I possibly can. Not slow ripping. You're still ripping it hard, but you're pausing really long between. Allow that bait to sink down. Right, you're ripping it. That bait is trying to escape, and then you're letting it fall. That bait is dying, and I'll break down certain sections of the water by hitting all sections of the water column. Now, if I'm covering a long shoreline, ideally I'd like to have three people in the boat. One person ripping as fast as you possibly fucking can. Another person ripping, moderately a little bit slower to hit that mid water column, and the last person is borderline bottom bouncing that lure. That way you can break down that area of water, cover all grounds, and just cover a bunch of water at the same time. I like to have three people in the boat for that. When you're fishing solo, it's a little bit more difficult. You have to be more methodical and break down um, each section of the water that you're fishing. But if you have three people in the water, you can move pretty fast and cover all facets there. But that's what I do when I'm ripping. Now, like I said, if I'm up in weeds, I'm always ripping fast. Mid water column, I'm still ripping pretty fast. And, once I start working in that 15 to 20 foot range, whether it's a rock bluff or a reef or some shit like that, I'm covering, like I said, upper water column, mid water column, bottom water column. So
Sweet. I think we'll probably try to incorporate that this weekend. I don't know if you heard it all, but we're heading to Vermilion, and that's going to be probably fairly heavy on rubber. And we're definitely going to be trying our best to switch our brains into late fall and slow sweeping, getting the baits down deep.
are you guys gonna have
Obviously,
three people on the boat?
us three right here.
Okay. So
We'll
there
be
you go.
doing.
One
Might
person
even have
covers
somebody
bottom,
jigging.
one person. Yeah, jigging too. I fucking love jigging. You know, I discovered that last year in November, fishing the Detroit River when I caught that 47 and 3/4 fish. And since then, I've tried to incorporate jigging all year round, especially with New Jersey fish, since they're so scattered and we have weed killer. Times of the year where you typically find fish shallow, they're still very fucking deep. You might think, that typical time of year there's fish up in 5 feet or lesser water. You incorporate weed killer, all of a sudden you have a bunch of fish that are in the 15 to 20 foot range, basically. And so, you could have one person jigging, and your boat's positioned strategically to where, the person casting is still casting up in the 5 feet of water, but by the end of their cast, when they're doing their figure eight, you're in 18 feet of water. And so one person jigging, one person casting as far as they can into the break line, as shallow as they can, and then one person obviously working mid water column in between there. And then usually during the majors and minors, I typically have people work a little bit faster, just because that's when I see, we have live scope on the boat, so we're working up a break line. You get a glimpse of the fish suspended, and typically they're not suspended outside of those majors and minors. Some lakes it's very moon oriented. Other lakes it's not. It seems to be first light, last light. Other weird fucking factors. Could be a front coming through or whatnot. And I'm sure you guys have thought long and hard about that as well. But it's New Jersey muskie fishing is no joke for sure. It's tough compared to other places I've been. Like, have you guys fished Iowa yet?
Yeah, I was a different animal. They load their lakes up and they don't have a ton of lakes, but man, do they put a lot of emphasis
So
on stocking numbers, and that's about it. And all the time.
I'd compare Iowa to New Jersey in the early 2000s. Right, you get a lot of fucking cookie cutters and to be very high density. Like you could, the people I've talked to, I didn't muskie fish back then, but I talked to them. Like you'd go out and you'd expect to catch 4 or 5 fish within 10 years of those lakes coming online. And then as the years have gone by, a lot of those fish die off or phase out, and it becomes a low density fishery. I would say Iowa is going to become a low density fishery eventually, as you have more time. It's been pretty recent since they came online, right?
Yeah, and they're still adding more, and I don't. And some of them are young, some of them are like I don't know what. I can't even remember what Becker said about Clear Lake, but I think Okoboji Spirit was more the original. Like they actually have a season on those lakes, whereas everywhere else in Iowa you can fish whenever you want because they
Yeah,
just stock the living daylights out of them. And I don't know, I think there could always still be numbers. I could see it just getting tougher because the pressure and the first wave of dumb fish are
yeah.
done.
I'd say within 5 years you're gonna have those fisheries peak, because they're fairly new coming online, and all of a sudden you're gonna have a bunch of those initial stocking classes reaching maturity, and you're gonna have a golden age of muskie fishing in Iowa. I passed through Iowa this spring, believe it or not, and fished there for the first time. And I only had about an hour to fish there. I stopped in. One of my followers reached out and was like, "Hey, hop in the boat with me." So we went out, and you know, this guy, I asked him to show me what they were fishing. He's like, "Oh, we fish crankbaits and spinner baits and bucktails and shit like that, and it's not that great." So I showed him a rubber bait. I was like, "We're gonna
Oh
fucking throw
no.
this thing. We're gonna throw this thing all day, or for the majority of the time that we're here." And you know, I hooked one within the first 20 minutes or so, right off a wind point on the backside. You know, when wind's blowing down a point, and on the backside you have an eddy there, and all the bait gets washed in. And you know, I see this set up, and like we're gonna catch a fish here. And first cast, I hooked one, came off, and so we kept moving down. And I was like, drive me to your best spot because I really only have 30 minutes. I gotta hit the road and go to Nebraska. I got a fucking football game to go to tomorrow. Um, and we hit another windblown point. And you know, first cast, I cast out. I'm letting my bait sink on the edge of this deep weed line, and I click my reel, and I go to make my first rip and fish, and hooked it, caught it. You know, had him drop me off the boat ramp, and he sent me a slew of pictures of fish that he caught after that, doing the same exact thing. So, you know, there's still a lot of dumb fish there, but I'd say within 5 years, you're going to start seeing a lot more 50s. And I don't know if they're going to be in that class of super tankers that Minnesota and some of the places in Wisconsin where you get those 55s and 56s. But I'd be willing to bet that there's going to be some 52s to 54s to be caught. I'm very jealous of Iowa right now. It's a cool place to fish, especially with you know, not that much pressure going on. You know, I know that a lot of you guys head down there when the season's closed in Wisconsin and Minnesota, since Iowa has open season all year round. But once Wisconsin and Minnesota open, where the fuck do all the fishermen go? There's really not that many that continue fish in Iowa.
It's true.
So, you know, if you think about it, there's a lot of unpressured fish that don't see fish or don't see lures for the majority part of the year. And you know, whereas you do have some muskie fishermen, and there's a lot of good muskie fishermen there, you don't have an incredible amount of pressure. And so those places are fixing to be very, very good here in the next few years. And my plan, since I go to Nebraska games a lot and I drive through Iowa, is to fish Iowa quite a bit. So I'm excited for that.
Should. Cool state for sure. Glad that we've been able to get down there little bit recently. Speaking of some dumb unpressured fish, I wanted to ask you about your trip, your Northern Pike trip, that you took this last year, I think. Or was it this last year? I don't know exactly where you went. I saw some of the videos of it, but you guys were just smashing giant pike. So be really curious to kind of hear that story on how you guys found this place and what the trip was like.
So not a lot of people know that pike scientists um, discovered that pike originated somewhere in Alberta, give or take, and then they spread across rivers. And eventually, back when the Bering Land Bridge was still a thing before it was covered by ocean, those pikes swam across the Bering Land Bridge over into Russia and Asia, and eventually made their way across into Europe. And so, pike are the most dominant fish ever. You know, those fish have been able to reproduce and just dominate fisheries and thrive like no other. But you know, over the course of thousands of years, where you know, those pike are spread, obviously you have new strains and different strains, and so that's why you see European pike so fucking big, is because they're a completely different strain than the pike that are out here in the United States. And
Hmm.
you know, up in Canada, you have a completely different strain of pike. And you know, I'd always had it on my bucket list Actually, last year I saw a picture of a 53.5 inch pike that was caught on a guided trip up in Canada. I was like, holy shit, that's awesome. One day I'll make it up there, but whatever. It probably won't be anytime soon. And then John B, the fishing YouTuber, he reached out back in, I want to say May or April sometime. And he said, hey, this lodge up in Canada and up in the Northwest Territories, Brabant Lodge, invited me out. Do you want to come with me? I said, fuck yeah, I want to come. Let's do it. So I bought my plane ticket, and a week before we were supposed to go, John B actually had to back out. And the lodge there, they hadn't, the lodge owner hadn't seen my YouTube videos. Like, hey, it's probably not going to work out. You're probably not going to be able to come. Blah blah blah. And then I guess at some point he looked up my YouTube videos. Like, never mind, you can come. You're good. You're good to come up to our lodge. John B is very well known. Me a little less so. And so once he saw my videos, he's like, yeah, you're good by yourself. But I actually hit up a Minnesota fisherman by the name of Nathan Speltz. I'm sure you guys have seen some of his videos. He whispers into the camera like he's Bob Ross.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that guy. I didn't know his name. I just know it's like YouTube or Instagram name or whatever.
Yeah.
Very
Does
common.
really well. So he was up in Canada on a flying trip when I texted him, and he was on his way home. I was like, dude, once in a lifetime opportunity. You need to make your ass up here and get your ass up here. And he was like, I don't know, man, maybe. And then I'm sure he saw the 53.5 inch picture from the year before, and he was like, fuck it, I'm going. And so he was like on a whim with like a day left. He got home to Minnesota. He's like, all right, I'm buying my $2,000 plane ticket, or we're fucking sending it. And so I flew up. I got there, and Nate was on the way, and then Air Canada fucked him, and he ended up having to fly from Minnesota to Montreal to make a connecting flight in Vancouver to then make it up to the Northwest Territories, where once we got into Yellowknife, which is where you fly into the airport, you have to hop on a puddle jumper to cross the lake that's bigger than Lake Erie, and then you hop on a water plane to get to the lodge, which is 3.5 hours away from the nearest boat ramp. And so when Air Canada canceled his flight from Montreal to Vancouver, he ended up missing out on 3 days of the trip. But by the grace of God, he made it. They worked some shit out, and so the seaplane comes out there to deliver supplies, and so they put him on the seaplane to, when they were making a supply run, and he made it. And we caught over 150 pike over 40 inches.
Holy shit.
We caught 3 pike over 48 inches. I think it was 4 or 5 over 47. Just a ridiculous amount over 46. A stupid amount over 45. And at one point, anything under 43 inches, we were shaking off the lure, which is crazy because, like, here in New Jersey, pike fishing my whole life, like, you see a 40-incher maybe once a year. There are a couple like in the 45 to 46-inch range, but there is 0% chance you'll ever catch those fish in New Jersey outside of like an insane feeding window with live bait. They're just so smart. I would argue they're smarter than muskie, like a 50-inch muskie. A 45-inch pike is older, and it's seen a lot more shit than a lot of fish. And my argument is that those fish in that class are way smarter. But once we got up there, that different strain of fish, right? They've been up there for thousands of years, and I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy to be a bait fish born in that ecosystem.
Yeah, it's piranhas.
It's just ridiculous. Like, every single cast, you're catching a pike. Every single cast, you have a pike following in. Every other cast, you're catching a 40-inch pike, and 3 or 4 times a day, you're hooking a fish in that upper 40s range. And the difficult part about that was that the Northwest Territories, they have a law that requires barbless hooks. And so, the first day you're losing a lot of fish. And then after that, we were there for July 3rd to July 9th. And so you learn really quick how to fight a fish with no barbs. And you get good at that. And nonetheless, still, there were 7 or 8 fish that I hooked in the 50 plus range that got off. And, I hopefully
50 plus.
That's
Jesus.
just
Would you
disgusting.
would you swim in that lake? Like, dumb question, but seriously, would you jump in off the boat and swim in
They'd
that
come after
lake?
your toes for
I
sure.
definitely wouldn't dangle my feet in. The lodge owner, Peter Fox is his name. He guided the 53.5 incher that was caught last year, and the same year he ended up catching the world record on a fly rod, which I'm sure you guys know the IGFA's weird fucking process for registering release fish, but it's like to the fork of the tail. And so his 45-inch fish was obviously a little bit bigger than 45. It was probably like a 47 and a half, 48-inch fish. But to the fork of the tail is 45 inches. You got to take a picture and then, submit it to the IGFA. And he got the world record for fly pike that was released. And then that 53.5 incher that he caught, or his client caught, would have been the world record. But he said that the fins were turning a little too red, and he'll get the world record eventually. So in order to get the world record, you need an IGFA bump board, which measures in centimeters, which is a fucking brain combobulation and a half. Is measuring a fish and seeing it. Oh, it's 123 centimeters. How many inches in that? Wait, we're in the middle of nowhere, fucking Canada. We have no service. We can't convert it because we're too stupid to memorize the conversion, whatever. But the fishing up there was
2.54, I think.
yeah, the fishing up there was absolutely ridiculous. We were lucky enough to go up there for free. I think for a 7-day trip, they charge $8,000. And mind you, that includes, lodging, food, gas for the boat. Your
I did too, or did they just set you off on boats?
Say that again.
Are you guided in that included,
Yeah,
or
so you have a guide, and so we ended up, the only cost that we had to pay was buying our commercial airline ticket to Yellowknife, and then that they cover the seaplane. You fly this Twin Otter from Yellowknife to Hay River, Wisconsin, which is a small plane, pretty sketchy, but you hear 50-inch pike, you hop on. I'm afraid of flying, and the second I heard 50-inch pike, I'm getting my ass on the plane, absolutely. And you fly from Yellowknife to Hay River, which is about an hour-long flight in that Twin Ot, and then you hop on a seaplane and you land at the lodge on the water and hop off, and you're good to go. And so the only cost you end up paying is the commercial airliner and the tip for the guide at the end. So it was a once in a lifetime experience. I hope I can go back eventually. My video, I think, ended up doing 10 million combined views, and he ended up getting a bunch of business from it, I think. So and Nathan posted a bunch of videos, long form. My style is short form. Nathan's is long form, and a bunch of people now have Brabant Lodge on their radar because of that. And I haven't even posted all the footage. Like, I was, before the podcast here, I was sitting in the office going through footage from July that I haven't been able to go through yet. And I'd say less than 2.5 hours, I had like 3 years worth of footage. It was absolutely incredible. You toss the lure out there at topwater, and fish hits it and maybe doesn't get hooked, and you keep reeling. Another fish hits it, keep reeling in. Another fish hits it, and I had a video where I had 5 topwater eats, on the same exact cast. And every lure we threw, I wish I brought more rubber lures because, fishing a rubber lure for 30 minutes, the thing's fucking obliterated.
Yeah, that'd be cool to see.
And, and I actually posted a video last week or 2 weeks ago where, I dropped my lure in the water and I look away and I raise my rod tip after I click my reel, and there's a 47.5 incher on the end of it.
I saw that.
That rubber lure was remnants of a crosstail sucker, which is, the smaller crosstail sucker. I think the body is 9 inches, and like in total, it's like 16, 15 inches. That thing was just torn to shreds completely.
Crazy.
And I was throwing just literally this rubber bait with no tail, no twister tail on it anymore. Everything's been torn off, completely torn to shreds. I dropped it in the water, and that fish fucking ate it. So the fish up there is unlike anything you guys have ever seen in your entire life. It's unbelievable. It's a pipe dream, and I hope I can go back one day. But just very grateful to have experienced that, and shout out John B for hooking it up. So,
do you have anything? Are you trying to plan anything with him? Any other crazy trips or anything going on with him lately?
No, not at the moment, but maybe eventually we'll get together and do something.
I feel like he's been kind of winding down on like he's got a kid now and everything, and he's settling in and maybe not as crazy of content as he once had.
He's done a good job though, weathering being more busy. Like his content hasn't fallen off at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he's always done good
Do
editing.
you have anything in the near docket for cool trips or whatever over this winter that you got your eye on?
I'm gonna go to Dubai in India, and
Right on.
Counts as a cool trip.
Yeah,
It's pretty sweet.
I'm going for a wedding.
Oh,
One of my best friends growing up is Indian, and he's having a wedding, and like I said, I'm fucking terrified of flying, but we got a plane ticket that goes through Dubai to India, and so on the way there, it's a short layover, but on the way back, we're gonna stop, and I'm trying to figure out if I can fish or not. Dubai. Apparently, they have some pretty cool saltwater muskie there, barracuda and whatnot. So
be sweet.
maybe
Dang.
sneak a muskie rod and some muskie baits on the plane and fuck around and see if those fish are dumb enough to eat something that looks like nothing that
They've ever seen.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen the muskie memes, really bad muskie memes.
Poorly made musky memes.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's our guy.
He posted a picture one time, and I think the caption was like, a lure that looks something like forage muskies will never eat. A lure that looks absolutely like nothing that lives in the fucking lake, they go crazy for. And
Yeah.
I found that alarmingly true, and hopefully when we go to Dubai and maybe India, I'll fish in India too. Those fish will want to eat something that looks absolutely nothing like forage, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'll be fun to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We'll be looking out for that. I David, I got two questions here. One, we kind of brought it up. I don't know if it was before recording or right at the beginning. But since you've done all this types of fishing, bass and pike, and now you're like hardcore into muskie. I know exactly how you feel. That's myself. I'm guiding as much as possible, starting that business, running this podcast, and living in an area fortunate enough that has a ton of musky lakes. I can go out as much as I want. How have you dealt with some of the burnout? Like, in what forms have you been able to kind of deal with that?
So recently, I found myself burning out. I bought LiveScope not too long ago, and I've talked so much shit on LiveScope and started using it. you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. But staring at a screen can be pretty boring after a while, and fishing the same body of water over and over again can fucking burn you out really quick. So dealing with the burnout, I found that going out and fishing new places, like making enough time to go out to Iowa or Ohio. I love going to fish, or Canada, or other places, and exploring new bodies of water is something that keeps that spark, keeps that flame burning. It sucks seeing people catch bigger fish than you. I had a client this year come out. His son watched my YouTube videos. His name was Danny. I don't remember his dad, but his dad told Danny, I will pay for your guided trip if you let me come with you. So, Dan obviously was like, fuck yeah, come with me. And so the dad comes out, and the dad's reeling in a bait caster upside down to start the day. I'm like, oh boy, I'm going to have you big all day. And, eventually we went from casting to just jigging. And I'm on the back of the boat focusing on Danny, watching his lure at the live scope. I made sure the dad had a good jigging cadence, and cut him loose on the front of the boat. And I turned the live scope around, and I told him, hey, all right, your bait's running a good depth, keep it right there. And so we're moving up this break line, and I'm focusing on the son's bait. And the dad's like, snag. I'm like, all right, give me the fucking rod. So I grab the rod, and I start, trying to get it out of the rock. And the boat's still moving forward with the trolling motor. And so the rod starts digging under the boat. I'm like, shit. So I turn the trolling motor off. I grab the rod and I hop on the back, and I start fucking whipping it, trying to get the bait out of the rocks. And I see his line start moving to the right. I'm like, you got a fucking fish, grab the rod. And so he takes the rod, he starts reeling it in. And Dan's line is still down, jigging. And so this fish gets fucking intertwined in Dan's line, and he starts reeling up, and it's a shit show. And he gets it up to the surface. Like, holy fucking shit. And we net it, and I knew the fish was 50, but I didn't know how big it was. And we threw it on the bump board, and it was a 52 and a half. And a guy who's never musky fished in his life was reeling in a bait caster upside down at the start of the day, caught a 52 and a half. And I was pissed. The son was fucking livid. He was not happy because we ended up dropping the dad off the dock. Like, get the fuck out of the boat. Fuck you. Eat shit.
Go get your mount.
He paid in full and tipped me 200 and fucking left. And then Dan and I ended up keeping Dan out an extra 5 hours, and we didn't see another fish the rest of the day.
Damn.
The dad who reeled in a bait caster upside down went home with a fish that most of us will never see in our life.
Unreal.
That's
Hey, it's all good, man. I've guided bigger fish than my personal best, so I know where you're at there.
It's you're happy for them, but at the same time, you're like, fuck you, I'm jealous.
Yeah.
One day we'll see a fish that big again.
You fish enough, you're going to be on the water enough that it is going to happen. You're going to go to bodies of water. I mean, like you said, Jesus, if you just spend some time on the Detroit River, St. Clair, St. Lawrence, Niagara, you go to Northwest Ontario, you go back to Leech. I mean, Jesus, one of those fish you find at Leech could be 54 to 57 or whatever. It'll happen eventually.
So after he caught it, I was explaining to him, like, he didn't understand the gravity of like what just happened, what he just caught. Like, that's a big fucking fish. Like, no, dude, that is a fish that musky fishermen could be fishing for 20 years and they'll never see a fish that. Yeah. Your very first time musky fishing, you just caught a fish that big. And I'm sure he had a great great picture to put on the mantle or fireplace or wherever the fuck he wants to put it. But that was a hell of an experience, to say the least. And we put 2 more 52 inchers in the boat since then. And so ecstatic for my clients, so happy.
smiling through the pain.
All the way, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, David, this is unless Brian's got another question, I think we're kind of hitting our time here. It was nice having you on. It was cool to hear about all the adventures and stories, and we'll keep watching all your videos. But yeah, man, nice to meet you, and yeah, a lot of fun listening to, like I said, all the stories. Good time.
Hey, appreciate you guys having me on, man. This was fun. I've been watching you guys for a while, or listening to you guys for a while, so happy to finally make it. And you know, I think this podcast went a little bit better than the first podcast I ever.
Say it went pretty well.
Hell
If you kill it on the muskie baits out in Dubai, we might have to have you back on for some story time again.
Yeah, I have to hear about. I'm gonna hear how
Dubai and
a
India.
Dubai muskie chokes a mag dog.
Yeah.
So I've heard that barracuda are closely related to muskie, at least from the excerpts that I've read and whatnot. But I don't know how much truth that is to it. They look strikingly
A
similar.
little bit.
I assume at some point they pike and barracuda and pickerel and muskie all fucking evolved from whoever fucking
We
Earth, but
Max and I fished them once, and they hunt on speed and reaction, so they're absolutely like musky. And when I'm talking speed, I'm like it's
Like 80 miles an hour.
Mach
oh,
10.
because they're infinitely faster than a pike or a muskie.
it's
You reel
it's
so much
crazy,
faster.
crazy to think that we troll for them at muskie at 5 miles an hour, and you think that's fast, but you go out to saltwater, it's like that's nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah,
I wonder how fast the guys troll for marlin.
They're like
driving.
10,
They're out for
15.
a joyride.
Yeah. I think it is like 20. There's plowing
Yeah, there's
through.
plowing. I mean,
How do you keep your bait down at that speed?
Pound of lead. Yeah, I
they
don't
will
know.
dipsy
So
dive.
much lead.
Yeah,
Maybe there's a muskie bite to be had at 20 miles an hour, and nobody's
Might be, yeah.
no,
Suix or something going 20 miles an hour.
Dude.
Pound of lead in front of it.
Prop wash.
Yeah.
Think about it, like even if you're burning your lure in as fast as possible, like the max speed that you can reel in is really only 3.5 miles an hour, right?
Pretty
So,
much.
yeah.
Yeah. That's
um,
why like trolling bucktails could be effective, because you pretty much can go a speed that nobody can reel.
Yep, and we do that a lot. You have these vast shallow flats in the spring. You throw a bucktail on a planer board like 9 feet back, you start fucking trolling across it and covering a bunch of water. Those fish will hit that, and um, I haven't tried trolling glides yet, but that's something my
Dude,
I don't know if many people have. That'd be interesting.
I've gotten that inspiration from, I don't know if you listen to anything that Brian Klein has done. He's been on some Fisher Smith videos. He's been on the Backlash podcast. He's a Green Bay troller, mainly. He travels all over the place, but I think somewhere in there he's got a quote. You control any bait. Like just as much as you can cast any lure that's ever been designed, you control anything. Like if there's a will, there's a way. You control it. So some
somewhere
more effective than others, obviously.
or someplace someone's gonna try some dumbass shit that makes absolutely no sense and just get on a bite that no one knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the part that keeps me always coming back to muskie fishing, because there's always something new, something that we don't understand about those fish that is to be found out. It's they truly are a remarkable fucking species that makes absolutely no sense, that just keeps us dumbasses coming back. But
If they made sense, I mean, we'd probably have given up on them a while ago. We already figured them out.
exactly. Like I said, why couldn't we all be in like crappie fishing or something else?
Yeah.
These dumb fucking fish.
Blow my brains out doing that.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
good.
that's
Good
for
on
the
that.
winter when you just throw a heater on and toss a football around and drink some beer.
Watching paint dry is sometimes more entertaining, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
that one bite makes it all worth it in the end.
For sure.
for sure
absolutely.
does.
God for
Well,
the dumb fish that actually decide to.
yeah, we are all kind of weird and dumb for doing this, but yeah, David, thanks again for coming on here. We got to get you back on. There's a lot more that we left on the table that you've done. I mean, so much in the like, the YouTube. You've put out a ton of content and everything. I think we alluded to it at the beginning. Brian, I think, wanted it more than anybody. Was was a little
Get
like
me out of the outro.
get Brian doesn't want to do the outro. If you could do a DKAM special hook, I mean, you do this probably on the daily, so um,
So I don't know about
something.
the book, but for anyone who's trying to get into content creation, like in years past, like I've watched muskie fishermen and bass fishermen, and they're trying hard to adhere to you know muskie fisherman content. They're like, we need to adhere to muskie fishermen, or bass fishermen, we need to adhere to bass fishermen. Well, you're going to find success in adhering to people who don't find fishing interesting at all. And I think those
Just the majority of
voiceovers,
the population.
yeah, and those voiceovers, storytelling, they really help you kind of jumpstart or hack the algorithm and reach people that really had no thought of fishing at all. And if you can make people who aren't interested in fishing interested, you've done something right. And so that would be my main focus for anyone who's trying to get into it. And that'll go a long ways, I think. If you're looking to get into fishing videos or whatever, anyone can make a fishing video, right? But not everyone can make it interesting to everyone. So if you cover that, you got a step up on the competition, and like I said, that'll go a long ways. So um,
Cool.
not sure if
Yeah,
that's a good enough outro or not, but
that's good advice. No, I think definitely we've talked about that in the past too. Other guys make YouTube videos. It's like trying to capture not just a small little muskie community in your videos, including some other parts to your content that will catch other people's eyes. Because I mean, you could probably count in the thousands how many people muskie fish or know what a muskie is. So you
yeah,
got to get broader than that. And
it's a very niche group of fishermen, and
right.
I always find it interesting. Like I've had a lot of negative people, namely guides. Oh, stop fucking posting muskie videos. Like it's bad. Well, hey, like if you make muskie fishing interesting to people who've never been introduced to muskie fishing, you're gonna have more business. So what are you getting mad at me for, or other people? It doesn't make any sense. But hopefully the sport can grow because of it, and more DNRs see the traction that it has, and we can start stocking more lakes or improving stocking programs, and getting to the level like New Jersey is our stocking program is top of the line. And just to think that we started it not that long ago, and got to that point, and some places that have had muskie fishing for a long time, or natural muskie, they're not quite at that level, or they're stuck on natural reproduction. Hopefully we can get more money towards our sport, and get more stocking and get more people interested, and maybe get a few more lakes mixed in there for us to.
Yeah,
But
that'd be the dream.
that's the goal, right?
Right on.
Absolutely. Cool, fellas. Well, I skipped dinner until now, so I got to go fill my gut up a little bit and then probably start packing for Vermilion here rather than last minute. So,
You
There he
better.
is.
yeah.
There he is.
Well, pep in your step now, kid.
Yeah, time has come.
Double nickel while you're out there. That's
I know. That'd be awesome.
I've heard the fishing is a lot tougher out there, but where there's a will, there's a way. So
Absolutely.
We're gonna find it. Brian, send us off here.
Again.
God, yeah, you got to do it.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to this episode of Muskies on Tap. Shout out to David Park for coming on. DKAM Fishing on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Make sure to go check him out if you haven't seen him already. Banger episode this week, guys. Now we are taking flight or taking a 7-hour car ride for me to Lake Vermilion this weekend. Hammering the 55-incher. That's what we're after. Not settling for anything less. Hoping the weather gods are on our side, guys. Peace.